first guest is Kate O'Reilly. Kate is also a small business entrepreneur, and she's an independent designer based in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. She has a store studio, and it's been around for how long, Kate?
It will be 7 years in
Whoa.
June. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, your anniversary is coming up.
Yeah, it is. Right around the corner.
So thanks for being here today, Kate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So I know you've been making for a long time, all sorts of things. And so how did you fall into this? And how did you decide design versus art, or did you make that decision?
Well, I've always created and made things, as you know me well, but my mom is an artist, and she did projects with us, from the time we were probably able to hold anything in our hands, we were creating. So it's just, I kind of just feel like it's in my DNA, like, to be a creative. And I guess why art or design, or like the differentiation between the two. I've always liked to make things that are somewhat practical. And so to me, like, fashion is a useful thing. It's something we all need, and handbags and clothing. So there's something really utilitarian I like about designing clothes. So I started probably most seriously, like, getting into fashion when I was in junior high and high school, and I would go shopping at Goodwill or Salvation Army and buy things and then take them home and take them apart. And it's like, you learn so much by taking things apart and kind of redesigning them. And you also learn so much about, like, what you feel good in, and like what looks best on you
and the body.
And it's like, I think so. I've thought about this, like, my whole life, about the body and clothes and whatever. It's like, I could go into any store and I would be able to hold something up and be like, this will work or it won't work, and it's coming to use, like, handy now, having a shop, and somebody will come in and they might pick a size off the rack, and I'll say, like, that's going to be way too big on you. And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, go ahead, try it on. I promise it's going to be way too big on you. They're like, how do you know this? And it's like, yeah, I just feel like it's just who I am,
Well, it's that spatial thinking. And I also come from, like, a deconstruction and wearable art place, but working with you, Kate, just for a little background, Kate and I have actually worked together. So I've seen her in action, and the way she constructs patterns for her bags is very interesting, because a lot of them are one flat piece and then folded. So yeah. The way you think about that is really,
that's in, I started making some of those bags. I was trying to kind of challenge myself, like, can I make something with as little seams as possible and one piece of leather, because it also makes it just look so much cleaner. And so I do like experimenting with that too.
And that's a good thing, because for durability as well, and the way of sustainability, not having to buy so much, because the less seams, the less stress points in an article of clothing or a bag, so less likely to wear out.
Yeah, totally.
So you've always been making, but how did this become a business, and how did that transition
happen? Label? Yeah. So I went to art school. I went to the Art Institute of Chicago, and I graduated in 2000. So by then I already knew, like, I want to work in fashion. My professors at school were like, you have to go to New York, because that's where fashion happens. And I was like, but maybe I'll stay. They're like, no, you have to go. So I moved to New York, and I had an internship lined up, a graduate from the school, and I worked there for 3 months, and then they hired me. So it was like I was here in New York City for 3 months, no income. Like, I think back to this and it's like, it sounds like insane.
And
But
what year was that?
this was 2000.
And where were you living?
I was living in Greenpoint, actually.
How did you know?
About Greenpoint?
Yeah.
I wanted to live in Williamsburg, but it was like already then I couldn't afford it. So the realtor was like, "You're young, you can walk. We're gonna show you places in Greenpoint."
And where was the job?
The job was in the garment district. Yeah, it was
Got a full crash course of like New York fashion life.
Totally. Yeah. And so I was the assistant designer, which really meant I cut out samples all day long.
It's a great way to learn, though.
It was a great way for me to learn patterns, and same with the job that I had after that, because when you are looking every day at pattern pieces and cutting them out, you know, and if you're really thinking about it as you're doing it, I mean, it really helps develop like this technical side in this eye that I have, like,
Absolutely.
you know, that's the same as like being able to tell what size somebody wears, like when they walk in the door.
And also just that like professionalism and like level of perfection that is necessary in certain, you know, production lines, and that we know you hold yourself to.
So after I worked for that first company, I worked there for a year, and then I had heard that there was an opening for this designer I had interned with while I was still in college, and that's who I really wanted to work for, but when I moved here, like, he wasn't hiring. So I moved there, and I was actually there for 10 years, and that's where I really think I learned, you know, 90% of what I know now, because he was such an amazing mentor. It was a small enough company where I learned so many different aspects of the business, from creating samples to production to ordering fabric and trim to sales appointments and shipping and invoicing, like everything that needs to go into any size business, really.
And that's a rare thing to get from one job, because, you know, it's all angles of it, owning your own business. So it really primed you.
Yeah, it really did. And he definitely saw in me that I wanted to do it. I wanted to learn as much as I could. And, you know, looking back on it, I'm like, it really takes a certain kind of person that's going to, like, you know, it shows how confident he was too in himself and his business, that he was going to like be open enough to me to like let me in and like learn all these things. And it really is from him too, that is like, you know, who I want to be with my employees too, you know. And you know how I am. I'm like, you know, very transparent and really try to be open about everything, and that's how he was. So he unfortunately went out of business in 2011 after like the economy really tanked. And so you know, it's good and bad. I mean, I would have stayed there for the rest of my life, I think. And so it's like, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have this. So after that, I went and I worked for another designer, and it was there that I really realized how much I knew. You know, I was so comfortable in this position I had for 10 years that I didn't even know everything that I knew. And so being in a new environment with new people and kind of leading a team, it made me realize like, oh, I have learned so much. And so then that's when I started to think, you know, why wouldn't I do this for myself? It's like, I have this one life to live, and the worst that can happen, if it doesn't work, I'll go back and work for another company, you know. So it probably took like 18 months or so before I like quit my job, signed a lease, like did all of that. So it was like a lot of planning, a lot of thinking and weighing different.
But you know, with your knowledge, you could have done this a few different ways. You could have made a collection and shopped it around wholesale and produced it because you have the contacts for production. You know,
Sure.
you could have done an online only independent designer. Why did you choose to be a face forward, grounded in this neighborhood? And we'll talk about the neighborhood after.
Yeah, I did think about wholesaling my collection. That was like a thought I had. And I thought, you know, if I had a brick and mortar store, and for one, like I wanted it to be in my neighborhood because I felt like, you know, I wanted it to be part of a community and my community neighborhood I live in. And I felt like it was a little bit less risky to have a space where I could also have other designers and other collections and not have it just be me and just be about me. Because it's like, even though I think I have a pretty, you know, likable style that, you know, it's not going to appeal to everybody. So if I can, you know, offer different points of view and still have it work well with the pieces that I make, it just felt like a little bit more comfortable to me. And it was also important to have a space where I could work, like have the studio attached, which this is my studio right back there. To have a studio attached so I can work in the shop and not just be in the shop and feeling like I have to be like selling all the time, you know, because and yeah, so that's how I kind of decided to go with having a store versus wholesale or even doing like online. It felt like if I have a face, I can at least get some people to know about it just from walking by.
And that's been, I mean, I know that's been very beneficial for you in a lot of ways. Maybe you can speak to the community that's come around the store over the years and the people you've met. And I mean, not to get the cat out of the bag, but I know that's one of your like unexpected, most favorite parts of it, the people you meet.
Yeah, totally. And that was something I never even thought of before having the shop. Like I never thought I was really a people person. I never thought about the like I never thought about those relationships with having a store. I just thought, oh, I'm gonna create some beautiful things and people are just gonna come in and buy it, and that's it. And then I just go make more things. But I have met such amazing people having the store, and it's something like I never would have thought of, and it has been like the best thing really. And it's like, you know, I meet people and, you know, I become like a part of their lives too, because it is all community. And it's like I know them before they met their boyfriend and got married and had a baby, and it's like so cool to see that, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to the store filled with other things, I mean, it's funny that you said that you saw that as like a safety net, because from my perspective, I really feel like, yes, the majority of the stuff is line and label, and you have filled it out with other pieces, but you've created a very line and label aesthetic overall to the shop, to the merchandise, to everything. And if anything, you use other designers' work to sort of extrapolate and build that perspective out, like fill it, you know?
Yeah, I definitely do. Yeah, because there's a lot of categories that like I'm not gonna make, you know. I'm not gonna make denim, so I buy denim from a company that's based out in LA and made in the US, or knitwear, or even the pieces that you make for the shop. I'm not going to dye silk and, you know, take the time to stitch it. So it's like, you know, and so it's great because I can have a broader point of view, because if it was just me, I mean, it would be lace shift tops and leather skirts, and, you know, which is great, but you know.
But then my tops look great with the leather skirts, so it's like a symbiotic.
Yeah, it totally complements each other, yeah.
And then you, I mean, for people that haven't been to Line and Label, she has a great eye for jewelry, and that's a really large part of what people, you know, have been word of mouth finding the store for the past years. In addition to the clothing, the jewelry, internationally independent collection. And I know you've started making some jewelry now.
Yeah, I have, and it's been about a year now since I just started making jewelry, and it was something because I am an artist or creative person, however you want to, or designer, however you want to define me.
Don't.
And I love jewelry. I love picking out jewelry for the shop. So, and it's so inspiring to me. And so, you know, I think of them as doing like little sculptures, especially like the wax carving pieces. So yeah, it was something I was like, yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot. And I love doing it, and it's been really successful for the store. And it's great. My customers also love it because, you know, they're like, oh, she makes bags and clothes and now jewelry. Like I can
a little
factory.
But jewelry, I mean, jewelry is like a different experience of shopping. It's something you might wear every day, or you might save for special occasions. The fit is not as much of an issue. It's more of an energy thing. So it really fits in with what you've built.
What I do. Yeah. And yeah, you saying that too. I mean, that was one reason why I really loved making the bags in the beginning. And the bags were like my core passion, like from the start. And it's because, yeah, I don't have to worry about fit, you know, and it is something like really functional. And so, yeah, jewelry, I think kind of it overlaps that a little bit. Like I don't have to worry so much about size. Like a necklace is a necklace, you know, it's more about creating a beautiful piece.
And I mean, do you ever think about merging the two and making your own hardware? I guess that would bring the price up, but.
Yeah, I have thought about that. Yeah. And yeah, it will bring the price up, but yeah, and we'll see. But.
Something to, we have time now. So now in this time of not so much, you know, only window shopping, unfortunately, what have you been doing? You know, you seem busy.
I am still very busy, thankfully. I've been making washable cotton masks. So, and I've at home, like I've still been working on some jewelry design stuff, but yeah, the masks are really keeping me going. And, you know, I thought it was going to be just a couple weeks of needing this, but it has been constant. So yeah, I'm in my studio every day, thankfully, like making these masks right now.
Well, everyone's thanking you. I mean, this is something, we're still people that want to feel good about the way we look, and we have to wear these. It's important to not hate them as much as you could.
Yeah, you have to wear them. So yeah, and that's, you know, I thought as New Yorkers, like, you know, a New Yorker is not going to wear a white surgical mask for weeks at a time, you know, like we
shouldn't. It's not hygienically.
It's not hygienic, yeah. But also I think we're a little vain in that sense. Like we still want to look good, even if we have to put something to our face.
So what is the best lesson that you think you've learned from the experience of being a creative person with a business sense, opening up this space, inviting the world into your creative mind?
The biggest lesson.
Or words to impart, something you'd like to take away.
I mean, it is just such an amazing thing to be able to have like a platform to share my creativity with others, and that people are open to it. It really has made me realize just how alike really everybody is in a lot of ways, you know, and like the world is a lot smaller than we think it is too. So like that sense of community, and even though I think about this a lot, like living in Brooklyn or New York City, I mean, it's, you know, people look at it from the outside like it's such a big place to live, and there's, you know, 8 or 11 million people, I forget, however many, but you know, it's really the smallest town at the same time too, because it's so important. Like, you know, your neighbors are become a really important part of your life, and your local stores and your local restaurants and all of that stuff. I mean, I always think, because our living spaces are so small, our neighborhoods are an extension of our homes. So yeah, so that's what I guess, you know, the biggest thing I've learned with having a store is just how important it is for communities to have places like this. You know, it makes every neighborhood better.
And I mean, now our radius is limited, you know, and you having built this community, you're seeing how it's coming back, and it's really something that's, I think it's what we're going back to, this kind of locally sourced, locally produced, I'll make a bag, you make a coffee, and I think it's kind of beautiful. We'll see what the future brings, but Greenpoint, that's a special neighborhood, and I feel you said it's important to open up the space where you lived, and I've heard that from a lot of people. Because you understand the inner workings of the neighborhood, and you kind of see what's missing and what the energy is.
Yeah.
And do you ever think about expanding or moving, or?
I've thought about it in the past. I mean, I would love to have several stores. I sometimes don't know how, you know, with me making so many products like one at a time, how scalable that part of my business is. But yeah, I've thought before, like I'm originally from Chicago, so oh, how great it would be to have like a store in Chicago. And I love going to Paris, and I go there twice a year for Fashion Week, and it's like, oh, I'd love to have a store in Paris too. But you know, those are all things that are kind of on my radar, but I have no idea what the future holds.
Take it as it comes. Yeah. And where do you get inspiration? I mean, Lion and Label to me is very rock and roll, hard and soft, urban.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of inspiration through music and through art and culture. I love looking through past fashion shows. I find a lot of inspiration in couture designers like Valentino, because it's just like, I look at it and it's just like, I just see just beyond beautiful pieces, you know? So even though what I don't do couture at all, but it's like it is sometimes, but like that is the kind of stuff that I find so much beauty and inspiration in, for sure.
Totally. I mean, honestly, from what I did, the way you construct it, as I know the inner workings of how you make things and the fine attention to detail, that's couture.
Yeah.
Maybe
yeah, because thank you. Yeah, you know, sometimes it's just like, you know, how you see things, and sometimes it's like, oh, you know, that is that, and I'm here. But yeah, I like making things one at a time and making things to order. Yeah, that would be considered couture.
So you are making everything, and are you constantly just making? Do you work, you know, a lot of us don't work in collections anymore.
Yeah, and
or at least in seasonal collections that way.
Yeah, and
how do you think about that?
I think because I worked for so long for a designer who did work with the seasons, right? And we would work on collections 6 months in advance to do the production, and it was all, you know, made to order. That is like a really scary space to be in, I think. And that's the other thing about the shop is because I am even though I do make things by season, it is like I do kind of constantly make things, but I'll make 3 of something, and once those 3 things sell out, I'll make 3 more. Like I don't make a ton of stuff and have like all this inventory sitting around wasted. So, and I think really that to me, it makes more sense to not have,
financially, and at the end of the day, it is a sustainable mindset because you're not making 20 tops. Who knows how many are going to sell? Then you'll have to put some on sale. You'll have to save some for the next season. You're waiting, and then you'll buy more fabric if you need any. You know, it's just small batch, slower scale fashion.
Yeah, and I find like I have way less waste at the end of the year. You know, my sale rack at the end of the season is one rack of clothes because I'm not over producing anything.
Totally. And I think that that's a strength financially and a strength, you know, time-wise. It's really suits the size of the store well.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you do that with jewelry? Do you know, it's a little bit harder when you are buying from other designers ahead of time, but you kind of have a gauge for.
Yeah, I mean, now I do. Now that I've had the shop for as long as I have, I've been able to kind of analyze more patterns and categories and what people buy and certain price points, and I even buy things with specific customers in mind, you know, because I have a lot of regular customers. I know what their style is. Even some husbands that are coming in to buy for their wives, I know they come in, you know, 4 times a year, and luckily I have a very good memory too, so I remember, you know, what they bought her for Christmas. But you know, at the beginning it was kind of a guess, but I didn't buy so much inventory at the beginning anyway. So now there is a little bit more logic behind it. And it's kind of like I have certain categories I try to fill, you know, like statement pieces, delicate pieces, and kind of middle of the road pieces. So to have like a selection for everybody in here too.
And that's such a nice way to be able to know your customers face to face, have that, you know, correspondence and interaction. It's really important to line and label. Would you ever think about intimacy and knowledge of.
Sorry, you were frozen up a little bit. Repeat.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's okay.
I was just saying that your intimacy and knowledge of your customer base is so important to your business and how everything operates. How do you think you could possibly, you know, move forward and grow, but still maintain that?
That's the tricky part of growing and having like that personal kind of connection you have with people. I mean, to me, when I think about growth too, it's not necessarily about more spaces or bigger spaces, but also just about having more customers come into this space. And for that, like I definitely have the bandwidth for that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's kind of the question then, or, you know, the difference between coming to a boutique and shopping or going to a department store and shopping, unless you've had like the same salesperson at a department store. But and I think it's also different here that, you know, I'm the owner, the designer, and it's my store, and I work here every day. So it's like I have a connection to everything that's in the shop because I either made it or I picked it out. So
Totally.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that is why I have the customers I have. They are looking for that kind of personal experience.
I mean, it reminds me of like a fabulous atelier that you go in, and if they don't have it, they'll make it, and if you don't think they have it, they'll show you they do, and it's just like this wonderful, classy experience with some edge in a great way.
With a little bit of leather and lace.
Yeah. Always. So what does a day in the life of owning Line and Label look like?
Well, on a regular day, while we're not in a pandemic.
Yes,
Yeah.
not with the masks. Looking
So
forward.
the shop is open 6 days a week. I'm typically closed on Tuesday, and from 12 to 8. And I spend a lot of time, I mean, I do spend a lot of time making things, but also merchandising the shop. So looking for new products for the shop, which, I mean, luckily for us now, I can do a lot of research online, and doing customer service things, following up with customers who are looking for something specific. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy sometimes how fast a day can go by, because between whatever work I'm doing on the shop, whether it's for you know, business related, doing operational bookkeeping stuff or whatever, I then will have customers coming in at the same time.
Keeps it, the customers are a nice natural way to break it up. And
That is true. Yeah,
yeah.
it is true. Although sometimes then you'll be like, wait, what was I just working on? But yeah, no, the customers, of course, it's great. I would not be here without them.
Yes, and you always have a great window display that's
Yes.
for the holiday or for the...
Yeah, I just redid it today, actually. I'll see if I can turn it around and show you, because we're trying to, you know, do more online shopping. So can you see the window display? So we filled it, it's a big case now in the window.
Oh, wow,
With
yeah.
merchandise, and with the sign saying that you can order online and pick up in the shop. So
I like that you're doing the pickup, because it's still got that kind of interactive as much as possible, small back feeling. It's not just, you know, the stork dropped it on my door.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Once I offered that as an option, how many people wanted it. And I also think right now everyone's looking for a little bit of human interaction. So even if it's from me 6 feet away, like, they're glad to see a different face, probably.
Totally, and a reason to get out of the house, put on some eyeliner, you know? So right now, everyone that's listening, we are gonna take some questions. If anyone is wondering something I haven't asked for me or for Kate, obviously, please let us know. You can type it into the chat, and we're all eyes on that. And Kate, we always visit Kate's shop on our tour. It's either depending on the day of the week, usually at the beginning or the end. And it's a really, really great way to kind of see, this one of 2 shops that we visit that we can see the studio of the maker, usually almost always making something. And it's really like, you know, you were speaking to how it's convenient to, if you're paying for a space, be able to do everything in it, but it's really something that's invaluable to a customer. You know, humans are making everything you wear.
Yeah, that's very true. So we do have a question. You want to read it?
As a designer and a business owner, are there any big wins that you have experienced other than running a successful business on a daily basis that you can share?
That's the first, it's a couple parts to the question. Yeah, big wins. I mean, I would have to say, I remember my first feeling where I felt like, wow, this is, you know, such a great feeling. The first time I had a repeat customer, which now, I mean, I have a lot of regular customers. But to me, that is such a huge thing, because if somebody comes back, it means they had a great experience and had bought some great products from the shop. So I just remember like the first time, somebody came back, and I remember going home and I was like, oh my God, this person, they came back to the shop, you know, and how great that was. And I have to say, every time I have, you know, a repeat customer, I still feel that same, I do not take any of it for granted, because I think, like, you know, that's the most sincere way to build a business, is one person at a time, and they have a great experience, then they'll come back. And yeah.
Totally. And what's keeping you inspired, motivated, and or sane during these crazy times?
I've had a hard time, to be honest, with inspiration. It is such a weird feeling, and I thought at first I'm gonna have this time off. Great, I can work on new designs, but it has been really difficult to find some real creative motivation. So that's why, I mean, I'm so thankful that I've been making masks. I make about 30 a day right now. So it really does take up a lot of my time. But then also, like, I realized what I did today, like rearranging the store just to kind of freshen up the space. It does kind of inject some creativity into me, and I see things with, you know, a different set of eyes. I see things differently, and I'm like, wow, I have some great things in here. And so, you know, so right now I think those are, yeah, those two things are what's keeping me going.
Totally. Yeah, I think we're all trying to slow down and see the beauty in things that we might have been speeding around too much for.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyone else have any questions? Kate is right here for you. Okay. Well, if you are, we'll take a look. And in the meantime, you can book the tour on likealocal.com. It's the sustainable shopping tour, and this interview will live on that page for the foreseeable future, and send it to your friends and learn a little bit about local makers. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you so much, Amalia. This was great.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Thank you.